I mean, it happens to me all the time. I'm a notorious non-finisher.
Well, so that was kind of the thing we'll talk about. But I was, we'll save it. We'll save it.
Right, save it.
I just get so excited. I just wanted to start talking.
Just stop talking, Jared.
Stop talking and introduce the show.
Shut up.
Okay, fine. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno to you as well. How are you this fine day?
I'm doing well because it was cloudy and rainy today.
It was.
And it's only about 85 now, which is like the coldest, air quotes, it's been here in a long effing time.
Oh, man. And I was out filming today. Got back from filming mid-afternoon. I was already kind of like hot and sweaty just because that's just how I get when I film. And it is muggy. But it was just after the rain had passed. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to keep this ball rolling. I'm going to go and run. And it felt amazing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that you were going to take a nap. And I was I would have killed for a nap this afternoon.
Nap. You can ask Sam. In our almost 10 years of being together, she has seen me nap maybe 2 times.
I am an expert at napping. I can nap almost anywhere, anytime that isn't actively sitting in a plane. Regrettably, the one place on earth that I actually need to be able to fall asleep, I can't.
Yeah. No, I can't fall asleep in planes either. That's going to
rickety buses going over cobblestones, easy.
Just not planes.
Just not planes.
A smooth, hopefully, what's funny? Mode of transportation.
I sleep better on planes when there's turbulence.
Really?
Like if there's a lot of turbulence,
it's
like, oh, this is like a bus. Okay, and then I fall asleep. But if it's like a smooth ride, I can't do it.
Any form of transportation, I have yet to find one that I can sleep in. I just don't nap, and it's just hard for me to like turn that off and to get comfortable in a place where I can.
I feel bad for you.
I don't know. It's just never been a thing for me. Like, I just have never really felt the need to nap that much, but you know.
One of my coworkers, we were the only 2 people in our department today, just kind of by accident.
Yeah.
And she told me later in the afternoon, as she was leaving to go home, she was like, yeah, not gonna lie, I kind of fell asleep at my desk, like just like this, like with her head in her hand, and I was like, "Really? That's a skill."
That is. I can see. I would be immediately just like doing the bobbing thing and just
the bob.
I will say though,
I do the drool.
I will say though, Sam has quite the collection of videos at this point because I do have the tendency to start when it starts getting late at night and we're up doing things to start nodding off and falling asleep. So she has so many videos.
You're already doing the old man move.
Falling asleep and then her going, and me going, and like waking up.
That's embarrassing. Shame on you.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But you know what also is good stuff? Video games. And that's what we're here to talk to you about on this episode of Team Chat Podcast, a weekly video game show where we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. New episodes come out on Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Central Time, and you can listen to those on podcast services around the World Wide Web, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others. You can also watch a video version of each episode on YouTube. Head over to teamchatpodcast.com/where to listen for a complete list of all the places the show is available. Our producer is getting a little barky.
I heard him. Good heavens.
Goodness.
He's really like laying into Sam. I wonder what she did.
I bet I'm expecting a package. I bet somebody came and delivered a package. I guarantee you that's what it is.
I thought maybe he was
can be a good guard dog.
I thought maybe he was just finally stepping up to the plate of like being in charge. Turns out no.
Not yet. But you can also find us on social media where sometimes we post pictures of our cute producer Fender and such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can join our Discord server as well. Links for all that are in the description below. And finally, if you're really loving and enjoying what we're creating for you each and every week, head over to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. And in return, we'll give you cool perks like getting the episodes early before their general release and other things as well. If you can't do that, no big deal at all. We love that you're here listening to us, and we would love it if you could show your appreciation and support in other ways, though, like reviews, thumbs ups, subscribes, and all the different places. We would love that as well, and we're glad that everyone is here listening to the show.
As the YouTubers say, smash that like and subscribe
button.
I like to say
hit the bell so you get notifications when new episodes go live. But yeah, so all those great ways to help us support the show and make it bigger and better are greatly appreciated.
Indeed.
Before we get into today's main topic, or 2 topics really today, it's a double feature, we have to get a little bit of news with our moment with Mogan.
So, couple of big games, just wanted to point out, in case you missed it, out now, you have Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch
That's a tongue
Witch
twister.
Remastered.
Say that 5 times fast.
Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. I can't do it. It's too hard. But that's for PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC. That came out on September 20th. Also on the 20th, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for the Switch. By the time you are hearing this, I've already bought it. Rest assured, I'm already playing it, and I'm already loving it. There's no question about it. It will be amazing.
Nice.
Take my word for it. The me from the past. Ooh. Spooky.
Wow, future Mogan.
Yeah.
Future and past Mogan coming
What also came out on September 20th, another one that unfortunately I can't pick up right now because I am already way over budget on my September gaming allowance. Untitled Goose Game.
Nice.
Came out for the PC, and I do really want to pick it up. So Untitled Goose Game, that's the game where you play as a rascally goose, and you just go around a town and terrorize the citizens by being, in general, a jerk. Like most geese. Yeah. Geese are jerks.
They are. They really are terribly
They're just the jerks of the natural
animals.
world. And then as of today, September 24th, you've got Cat Quest 2 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Also on the 24th, Contra Rogue Core for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. Also on the 24th, The Surge 2 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And coming very soon, Mario Kart Tour for iOS and Android.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That'll be fun to try out.
Sure, if you say so.
I'm going to try it.
And then coming shortly after that, Code Vein for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on the 27th. Dragon Quest 6S comes out on Switch on September 27 as well. And another game nobody cares about, almost certainly. I guess these sports games, like, all release in the fall.
Yeah.
I guess because people have gone back to school and they're, like, sports-minded. I don't know. The point is, FIFA 20, nobody cares. Comes out on...
kind of care.
You don't.
I mean, I still have FIFA 17.
It's a financial scam.
17.
We should eventually talk about how much of a scam sports games are because they are
just a recycled
blanket a scam. Anyways, that comes out on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on the 27th. Don't buy it. It's a scam.
Strong
FIFA 20.
opinions. Strong
It's a scam. Okay.
But you're also forgetting one game that you're also very excited for coming out on the 27th as well. To the Switch, specifically.
Oh.
And your first...
Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm ashamed.
I think they're actually releasing a playable demo early sometime.
I don't need the demo.
I know, you'll have the
it's
game
going to
at
be
some point.
such a freaking expensive month for me. Because I picked up, of course, the Monster Hunter World Iceborne DLC expansion, really. Also, because it just happened to be super on sale, maybe it still is by the time this episode airs, I'm not sure. Celeste was 50% off.
That's right.
It also just had that big DLC pack come out, so I had to pick that up. I'd wanted to get it for a while, and I finally did it. It was only $10, people.
Not bad.
50% off. Get it at $10. Limited time only. Potentially not even out right now for that price. Anyways, and then, of course, Link's Awakening. I am just poor AF.
Swamped.
I have to be able to afford both games and French fries.
That's true.
You can't have it all,
I know.
despite what sitcoms tell you.
So, also another bit of news that is going to be on the 24th. So, the day that this episode is releasing, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. Because Sony announced a couple weeks ago, by the time this comes out a couple weeks ago, that it was going to be, and so it's the day of this episode's release date. Sony is holding a state of play where they will be releasing more information on a lineup of certain games, but it's already been confirmed by Neil Druckmann that there will be The Last of Us Part 2 news.
Okay.
Will it be a release date? I don't know, but my fingers are crossed as hard as they can be crossed.
Watch it just be really detailed information about what kind of guitar Ellie plays.
I know, it won't.
And it's
It'll just be
actually
more
just
like
like
gameplay.
secretly product placement. And they're just like,
mad.
oh my God, are you going to do a Jarrett Reacts?
Oh yeah. Like
nice.
I'm gonna try to figure it out. I've never done like a watch along with a stream react
Do a
thing.
watch
I'm gonna try to do
along.
that.
Yeah,
So
what time is it?
It's going to be 1 p.m. Pacific.
1 p.m.
4 p.m. Eastern. So
gosh.
be tuning in here for you Central Timers at 3 p.m. Central Time for when I'll
Must
be
be
trying
nice
to do my
not to
thing.
be employed.
I am employed. I'm just employed to myself.
You're better off than I am.
But no, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited and I'm praying to God that it's. I was actually in the Discord for one of our the Player versus All Discord that I'm in, and because they announced, they put the Hoagie over there. He put in the announcement of the state of play, and I did that. Tried to do that like summoning circle candle meme thing with Last of Us Part 2 release date in there, but then I just entered it, spent all the time to do it, and then when I entered it in, the formatting was fucked, and I was so mad.
Poor
But hopefully the
Jared.
summoning circle still works, so just throwing it all out
You just
there.
have to make one in real life.
That's true.
Duh.
I would
You've
legit
probably
do
got
it.
the merch for it.
I've probably got the merch. I've got enough lights, probably enough candles around.
You can put this in the
make this-
circle.
Yes. Yes.
If you give Aloy a guitar, she might look enough like Ellie
That could work.
that she could pull it off.
That could work too.
Maybe
Have
are
to-
there any llamas in The Last of Us?
There were giraffes.
That's kind of close.
Yeah.
This thing kind of looks like a giraffe.
Or I could just burn a pile of, or smash a bunch of bricks and bottles. And
You
stuff.
should go out into the woods and find like real mushrooms because they're they're like fungi creatures, right? Yeah, you should go get
There
some
we go.
mushrooms, bro.
I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
This is great.
Oh, I guess, or you could just go to the grocery store
Just buy them. That's boring.
and then you can eat them afterwards.
One more thing before we jump into the main topic. So we're very excited about that. But then one more thing before we jump into the main topic, we do have to do a little bit of housekeeping. Got a couple announcements about the show. Probably should have put these before the moment with Mogan, but we
Too
just
late.
got rolling into it and I just
Whatever.
rolled right in. So here we're going to just talk about these now. Couple quick things. So as you may have seen, if you've been following the show, we had to miss a few weeks due to some personal emergencies on my end. And so we have been able to operate with it throughout this whole time that we've had the show. Unfortunately, we've been very lucky to not really run into the situation where this has happened a lot. This year, it's happened way more than any other. And so what we're doing, though, because we have some end of the year travel coming up and just the month of October is going to be a busy month for us anyway. So we're going to be taking the month of October off. Calm down. Everyone take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Because what we're doing is we're going to be pre-recording a bunch of content that's going to be evergreen. So in case this ever happens again, we have a backlog that we can put out episodes and there won't be an interruption in our release schedule. Does that mean you will hear nothing of us during that month? I'm going to go ahead and say no, just because I'm sure there will be things that come up, things that we'll want to talk about. We'll be talking about some games. There might be more trailers, reactions, things we want to do about that. I'm not making promises, but I'm not putting it outside the realm of possibility either. But all this is to say, though, we are going to then come back in the beginning of November. We will, though, have one more episode after this week. So next week will be our last episode before our hiatus. We'll remind you all again there. We just want to give you all time to prepare mentally. But
And
emotionally because
yeah.
those are very important
Prepare
things
in
and
your
everyone needs to be
hearts.
ready. But the good news is, though, we'll be coming back, though, coming back out of our hiatus on November 2nd, which is a Saturday. Why is it a Saturday? And why are we coming back then? Because it's Extra Life Day 2019.
Yay!
And we're going to be doing another 24-hour stream. We'll be kicking it off at 8 a.m. on November 2nd, going until 8 a.m. on Sunday, November 3rd. It's always great because Extra Life always winds up being both Extra Life Day and now, just because of when it lands, that's our anniversary as well. So it'll be
Yeah.
us starting off a new year of
Good
the
for
show.
us.
It'll be a nice fresh break. So that was another reason, a nice fresh beginning. So that's another reason why we wanted to take October to kind of build up, plan Extra Life, get a bunch of episodes in the can that we can have ready, and just, continue to build improvements to the show. So we wanted to give both of those announcements before we jumped into the topic, and so we didn't forget, and so everyone would know. But again, October, except for the 1st. So October 1st, we'll be releasing an episode. That will be the last released episode of October because we'll be doing the hiatus. We'll be coming back November 2nd for our Extra Life stream. So tune in for more updates on all of that. So now we can move on to our main topic, which is kind of a dual purpose and they kind of lead into each other. I saw some articles and an article from Gita Jackson on Kotaku. The headline is, "I stopped playing Control because I don't want it to end." Basically, and so in the article, she goes on to talk about her experiences with the game and that she says, a big problem for me, quote, "Here's the big problem for me. The more I play the game, the less game there is to play. Soon the game will be over, and while Control still has missions to complete after the credits roll, the act of discovery will be over. The Federal Bureau of Control won't be entirely unraveled, but the majority mystery of the game will be. I'm dreading this." So that kind of led to us wanting to kind of talk about the same thing, because I know we've talked about games that we've stopped playing because we hated them or we didn't like them. But what are games that we stopped playing or delayed putting off? Because I don't know if there's one, if I actually enjoy the game, I don't know if I've ever stopped playing completely because I enjoyed it. I will delay it and push off its conclusion for as long as I can. But I don't know if there's ones that I've just been like, I'm not going to finish this because I don't want it to end.
I do it
But-
all the time.
Really?
All the time. I would say that of the games that I've played in my lifetime, I have perhaps completed, most optimistic guess I can throw out there, 15 to 20%.
Really?
Because I've played many
Right.
games. How many of those have I finished that actually had a finishable part of the story, not including games like Overwatch or Monster Hunter World, which arguably doesn't have an end of the story, even though they say it does, but not really. You're not even playing it for the story. It's not the same thing. So of games that had a defined end, where it was like, okay, you reached the end of the game, credits roll, good job, I have finished precious few of the ones that I have actually played. I'm getting better about it. I would say that since we've started the podcast, largely because of the podcast within the past 2 years or so, I've gotten a lot better about actually seeing games through to the end.
Right.
But in my history of life, not just with video games, with any media I am really enjoying, I'm a notorious non-finisher.
Just
for this
because-
exact reason.
Well, I mean, and I will say there are a lot of games that I have started playing and have kind of fallen off of them because either new things come up and I just forget to go circle back around to them, or just because I'm not enjoying them. But like, what about a game necessarily makes you not want to finish it? Even if you're enjoying it, you're loving it, but like, why does that? Because it would seem that would make you want to finish it because you want to see how it concludes, but. Is it because you're leaving the world and and it's like that journey is over, even though you could replay, but it's not the same? Or is it just like, you're just like, this is too great, this is too good, I enjoy playing this too much to put it down?
Well, a really good example of this for me would be the Dishonored series, which I finally made some actual progress in. As you know, I finally finished after 4 years, probably even 5 years. After approximately 4 to 5 years, I finally went back just a few months ago and actually finished Dishonored 1.
Right, I remember you telling me that.
And then I actually did also finish the first, not all of them, but the first of the DLC packs that came along with Dishonored 1 as well. I still have another one to play through, and yet again, what am I doing? I'm not playing
You're not going through it.
because I'm like, but if I finish the final DLC pack, then it's really, really over. So I keep doing it, and every new additional piece of content there is, I'm like, okay, how long do I think I can put that one off for? Historically, years.
Yeah.
But I've done the exact same thing with Dishonored 2. So now that I finished Dishonored 1, I already knew where things were going. I basically already knew how Dishonored 1 was going to end because I had gotten all the way to the end. I just hadn't finished the game.
Right.
With Dishonored 2, it's kind of the reverse. I started playing it, got, I think, 2 full chapters, full missions / chapters in, and I think I stopped as I was beginning the third one for a couple of reasons. And this is actually the exact same reason that I fell into this trap with Dishonored 1. And eventually with Dishonored 1, I just had to divert from the path. Also, by the time I picked it back up, I had kind of forgotten how to play. So I kind of forgot what I was doing.
Yeah.
But with both Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2, I'm the type of player that with the Dishonored games, they're very choice-based, and you can either go in guns a-blazing, or you can go in super stealthy and pacifist, or you can do a mix of both. I wanted to play entirely pacifist and have a run where I had a no-kill run for anyone. So I wanted to be able to play the game and end it and have said, I've killed no one. I've gotten the air quotes perfect pacifist run.
Right.
Unfortunately, with Dishonored 1, I really ran into issues in the flooded district because it was crawling, literally crawling with really difficult enemies. And if you miss one, if you F one up just a little and don't manage to sleep dart them and secret their body away to somewhere else and gently lay them down, and you're like, hope the rats don't eat you. And then you
Put a
run
little
away.
blanket on
You
them,
put a
a
little
little
blanket
pillow
on them
under
and
their
you're
head.
like, you'll
Yeah.
be safe in this dumpster. And then run off to get their friends. If you don't do that in perfect order, you alert all the other guys. And then they all come running and they're going to kill you, and there's
Right.
no way around it. So you're like, well, shit, I got to start the whole chapter over again. So I kept having to do that, and then I finally got so frustrated that I stopped playing it, and it was nobody's fault but my own. If I had just not played the stupid pacifist way that I had chosen, I could have finished the game way sooner. But as it turns out, that was probably never going to happen. So when I went back and took back up Dishonored 1, I did not play that way. I was like, I don't even remember how to play. How do I punch?
Yeah.
So I did my best not to kill anybody, but I definitely got kills, ruined my pacifist run, but managed to finish the game.
Nice.
With Dishonored 2, I have encountered the exact same trap. And again, it is no one's fault but my own.
Well, I mean, but you do that with Pikmin, though.
I do it with Pikmin. I don't do it with every game. It's just when there's a game where the option is very clearly there.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't actually care if these guys in Dishonored live. I don't care. I'm fine with killing them. They're not adorable Pikmin that I want to love and protect and keep alive for the rest of their days and mine. So it's just that it's more fun to try and set up these ridiculous goalposts for yourself and be like, can I do it this way? And I think there's some point in chapter 3 where I was trying to get through this building and just everything kept going wrong and I kept alerting the wrong guys and I was really mad. So I was like, you know what? I haven't even finished Dishonored 1 yet. So I kind of used it as a back alley to be like, oh, okay, well, I'll take a break from Dishonored 2 and I'll come back to it after I finish Dishonored 1. That being the fake promise that I made to myself, and now that I've finished Dishonored 1, I'm like, well, shit. Do I really have to go back and finish it now? It's not just that the way I want to play is so defined, it's also exactly kind of what you said earlier, which is that I really enjoy the world of Dishonored. I think that the environment that they've laid out is, by its own rights, really unique, because it's this alternate universe, it's not really reality, but it's based kind of loosely on like the Victorian/industrial age, so things aren't really technologically advanced as we would know them now, but in their own way, they're kind of like in their own technological boom, they're figuring out new ways to do things.
Would you say it's, I don't know if it's the quite the right thing, but it's kind of steampunkish.
I would say it's definitely steampunk. It's very steampunk. That's kind of exactly where they're at, is that they're on the cusp of being, they've already had their industrial age. Now they're on the verge of having their next big like technological revolution. They're figuring out these wild new technologies, blah, blah, blah. So it's a really interesting world to be in. And even though it's dark and kind of ugly and you're like, there's rats everywhere.
Gross.
They can be my friends if I possess them, but then if I like beat them up, they all attack me. Anyways, the point is, it's a world that I really love. I like the characters, even though, you know, as Corvo, at least you're a mostly silent protagonist. Emily isn't as silent. She'll talk quite a bit. I'm in Dishonored too, but for the most part, you feel like you really kind of are the character that you're embodying, and I just really enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
It's super fun gameplay. It's a fun environment. There are these obnoxious goals that I've set for myself in-game that kind of make a challenge for me, because if you just played, you know, very general, kill some people, subdue some people, it's objectively an easy game unless you play on hard mode. But I like to play it my way, and I like to not kill anybody, even though it's stupid.
I think I tried with Deus Ex Mankind Divided to go for a pacifist run, or I was thinking about it, I was considering it, and that lasted maybe the 5th time I died in the first level, and then I was like, nah, screw it.
Only 5 times? You scrub!
I know. I was like, nope, this is dumb.
You're a scrub lord!
But for me, I feel like the game, I was actually looking back and thinking it on like my lists of completed games and everything, and I found a pattern. The games that I don't want to end are the games that I platinum.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, on PS4. And so, and it's to some extent like I want to go back, and I'm waiting for, because another reason why I'm very and hopeful that on today, as of this release, that we're getting the news of the Last of Us release date, because that was my plan to go back and replay Last of Us once I got the release date. And so like that's one game that I haven't platinumed that one, but I also know that platinuming it was going to require several more playthroughs, including ones on the hardest difficulty level, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. But I would love to platinum that game one day. It just might be years down the line before that happens. But
by then, your fine motor skills will have deteriorated.
I know. But see, in a way, though, that keeps the game from ending, in a way.
In a way, it does. That's true.
So that I can keep coming back and experiencing it, and it'll probably be the same way with Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2, I can guarantee you, though, is going to be one that I'm going to have that conflict. I will want it to last forever because it's finally here, the sequel to The Last of Us. But I also know I'm going to want to bust through that story and just like, because I know it's going to be one that the faster I play it, the more impactful the game's story is going to be.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was with The Last of Us, the first one. I started playing through it and I was like, oh man, this is really good. I want this to last. But as I got deeper into the game, I found it being able to stop playing. And so I had to keep like, I was just like, okay, well, I have to finish this because I need to feel like this is, and obviously was very much rewarded by the end game of that. But so I think for me, that's kind of how I handle this. I don't stop playing them, but I increase my level of derping around. But the games that I had as examples were Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, Far Cry Primal, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Assassin's Creed Origins. So those are all very big open world games. They're filled with things to do. And so, you know, in each one of those, I've like very much enjoyed. Like Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor was awesome because for me, it was the first. I know I've talked about it before, but they had Lord of the Rings: War in the North was the first rated M Lord of the Rings game that had come out. It's crazy.
Does Gimli say dwarvish swear words?
Actually, don't play as Gimli.
Oh my God, what a waste
of a game!
But you did
start like decapitating orcs and your enemies, and there were some big, you know, some gory kills
rated
like that.
M?
I guess for Lord of the Rings because you didn't want like, you know, little children who are just
They're
like,
orcs.
I love the hobbits.
They need to learn how to survive. It's for the best.
Shadow of Mordor, but then remember, I did stop playing that game and never got to finish it because it was so damn buggy, and I kept glitching out, like being able to not progress in the game. So Shadow of Mordor, was very exciting for me, and I wanted to spend as much time as I could because it was that on a bigger scale. It kind of felt like it was a huge open world game, which I'm a big fan of anyway. And so being able and pursuing that and pursuing the platinum trophy was just a way to make it never end. And the same carries over for all these other ones. Horizon Zero Dawn, my God, I didn't want that game to end. I loved running around, hunting the machines. The story was great. Yeah, got Aloy over here. She's standing watch over us as we record. It's great. You know, and everything about that game was... Get one
of those, like, weird metal stegosauruses.
I actually have one.
Wait, it's a long neck. Brachiosaurus.
Yeah. The tall necks from there that had all the radar things. Is that
what they're called? Tall necks?
I think they are.
That's hilarious.
I think that's what they're called. I have one of the Watchers, a Funko of the Watcher. And then I have since I got the collector's edition of Horizon, I have like the Aloy, the really cool Aloy statue.
She's too big for the shelf.
I wish she could be on the shelf. And so it's just... It's one of those things. It's just like the amount of what I can do in the world has a lot to do with it. A game like Call of Duty, no, I'm not gonna be like, oh, this is too good, I don't want it to end. Nah, I'm gonna play through that story.
Things no one has ever said about Call of Duty.
Burn. So, you know, it's mostly in these big open world games like that. But no, to some extent, if it's one that I do want to finish, I don't think there would ever be the point that I would say I'm not gonna play this game because it's too good.
I mean, it's never a conscious effort for me. It's always very much like I know it's happening. On the one hand, I know what I'm doing. I know the pattern I'm falling into. But also, I'm not going to stop myself.
No, I'm going to... The one more recent game that I did do that on, it was a mix. It was a mix of not necessarily wanting it to end because I knew there was so much more I could do, but then I needed it to end because I needed to move on to other things, and that was Red Dead 2. There was so much more, and I contemplated platinuming in that, but there's too many trophies that are determined on the online, Red Dead Online, and so I won't platinum it for that reason because I'm probably not going to play Red Dead Online. But Red Dead 2, like as I especially got into it, we'll do eventually. I want to have like I know my buddy Michael played it, and our good friend Kirok, he also played. So maybe we'll try to do like some big joint. Kind of wrap up thing of that game.
Don't do it. Don't waste your life.
No, it really did get so much better for me than I initially let on. No, it really did. This is going to sound really weird to say, but the last quarter of the game was probably my favorite, and it was great.
It took it that long to get good, huh?
Not that it took it that long to get good. That's again, it's where I doubled down and pushed through the story.
Ah, yes. Rather than derping around out in the wilderness.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Like I still have legendary animals I want to hunt. I still have things like that I want to do. But now I don't have the weight of needing to finish the story hanging over me. I can go back to that anytime I want. And I'm actually now, they did do a big update to Red Dead Online where they introduced like legendary bounties and everything. Doing the bounties was one of my favorite parts of Red Dead 1, and I really enjoyed it doing it in Red Dead 2. And so having that, I kind of saw that. I was like, okay, I see you, Rockstar. You might actually get me into Red Dead Online, but probably not for very much or very often.
Not.
But like, so, I don't know. For that, I would have to say those 4 games are probably ones that would fit this criteria the most of kind of not wanting them to end. So I just did whatever I could to prolong them.
That's pretty funny because I feel like of the games that I've played that I haven't finished in their entirety, and in some cases haven't finished at all, tend to not necessarily be, or not majority be, the large open world games. I actually did finish Breath of the Wild. Surprise, shock and surprise all around. Most of the games that I tend to stall out the absolute longest are very, by a large extent, much shorter one-offs. Great examples of that would be Hollow Knight. It took me forever to finish Hollow Knight, and I still technically haven't finished it because I haven't gotten the good ending. I can. I'm at the point where I can, in theory, if I can beat the final boss. But I haven't even really like made that big of an effort to beat the final boss because I'm like, but then it will be over.
Right.
So I'm still stalling that out. I'm like, oh no, I haven't beaten all 3 tiers of the Colosseum. I haven't found Mr. Mushroom in every single scenario. Haven't beaten the Grim Troop yet. So I'm like, even in a game that I've technically finished once before, I'm still diverting away from actually finishing it.
Yeah.
Other great examples of that would be how long I stalled out Child of Light. Another very short game that I was like, you know what? How long do I think I can make this last?
Yeah.
And really, I'm the most guilty of this in JRPGs. And I think that's, even though they are big games in a lot of cases, they're not open world. You would never describe, or in most cases, you wouldn't typically describe a JRPG as being open world. They might be big worlds, but for the most part, JRPGs tend to be fairly linear. And many of them, most of them that I've played in my lifetime, I've never finished. And part of that is because I'm enjoying them so much. I don't want the story to end. I don't want to know what happens at the end in a lot of cases, even if I can see what's coming down the line. Great examples of that would be Bravely Default and Bravely Second. Both games I love, both games I have played up until very close to the end, neither I have finished.
Interesting.
And in both cases, it's like, I can see what's coming. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to stop right here.
Yeah.
Almost every Final Fantasy. Almost all of them. I'm like, I'll play up until a point.
No, I see where
think
this
I'm
is going.
done. I'll stop here. And it's like, it's not even that the ending's going to be bad. It's just that I see it. I see the finish line and I'm like, okay, it's time for me to stop. And I especially do this, not even necessarily with small games or with JRPGs. I will do it again and again and again and again with games on replay. So I do it with every Legend of Zelda game. Do you have any idea how many times I've replayed Wind Waker up until the last segment and then I stop?
10.
I don't even know.
Oh, really?
I'm not even sure.
Times.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how many times I've done it. I've done it with Twilight Princess. I've done it with Skyward Sword. I've done it with A Link Between Worlds. I've done it with Minish Cap because I still love that game and it's so good. I've done it with Golden Sun. I've done it with Final Fantasy VIII. I've done it with Final Fantasy X. Any game that I'm like, how far can I get? I already know what's going to happen. And even games that I haven't actually finished before. So like it'll be the case where I've played the game up until the end. Rather than finish the game, I'll start a new save file and play up until the same point I got to last time. And then I stop again. And then I go back and I do it again.
This is blowing my mind. Like, why?
I do it all the time.
Because, like, even though I may have like very deep feelings for this game's story and the characters, like, I still want to see it to its conclusion eventually.
No, thank you. I mean, the alternative is, like, obviously with the Legend of Zelda games, I do almost always finish those. But with many JRPGs, and I guess RPGs in general, I'll do the same thing over and over again. I'll play up until what I know is the final boss, and then I'll stop.
Okay, so this is kind of something, talking about the end of games and everything, kind of touched on slightly last week, but so what lets you know you've hit that point then? Is it something that like the game tells you? Like I know some games will have that thing like, are you sure you want to continue? Because it's like you do this and you're getting the end game. Or is it a point where you kind of have an idea where the story's going and you're like, I'm going to stop here? Because for me, once I know I get to that point where it's like, here's where the game is going, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play this game until I know I have a solid 3 hours or what, whatever. It's just a big enough chunk of time where I can get through that all at once and enjoy the conclusion of this game at that one point. Because I can't tell you how many times that I have played a game and been like, I feel like I'm getting to the end. Like it didn't tell me. And I'm like, I feel like I'm getting to the end, but then I have to stop for some reason. And then I go back to play it and I literally do like one more fight and that was the end. And and it's kind of that like that buildup that the game story has is lost to an extent when you have that interruption.
So
do you like having the game tell you like, hey, this is it?
No.
Or do you like to discover it for yourself?
The game doesn't have to tell me, especially with JRPGs, because they are so... again, for the most part, they are so formulaic that they follow very similar patterns. You know when you've hit the final end game of a JRPG because it usually gets to such a grandiose scale. You're either in space or you've made it to like another dimension, or the final boss that you've been fighting all throughout the 4 discs of the game has finally gotten so big that you're like, okay, that's his final form. I definitely know that. So it's so easy to see that you're like, okay, this is the end. It doesn't have to be like, are you sure you want to continue? I just know that it's the end.
Okay.
But with modern games, I think it's a lot more easy to see because many of them will have percentage counters.
That's true.
Of how much percentage of a game you finished. And it's like, oh man, I kind of don't like that system. I wish that games that had percentage counters either hid it somewhere that you had to actually actively seek it out, or that they had the option to turn it off. Because I feel like with Hollow Knight, it's helpful if you're treasure hunting to know how much of the percentage of the game you finished. But it's also like, man, on the one hand, I kind of wish it hadn't told me, because then it would have been even more of a surprise to figure out, okay, is this really the end of the game or not?
Right.
So I don't know, I'm kind of ambivalent on it. Mostly I just want it to always be an option in terms of hard percentage counters for a game.
Got it.
I don't want it to ever be something that you have to see that you can't turn off. Because, I mean, I don't want to know when the end is near.
Yeah.
I want to be surprised.
And I feel like I normally only see it where it's like, are you sure you want to do this in like bigger open world games or something like that? Like Assassin's Creed Origins comes to mind, and Horizon Zero Dawn, actually. Red Dead did not have it. I got to a point, though, because I knew I was nearing... Because it has 6 chapters and then 2 epilogues, or an epilogue with 2 chapters. And so I knew I got to this one point at the end of chapter 6, and I got to this one mission, and I said, okay, I need to either stop playing right now, and it was starting to get late, or I strap in and see this to the end of chapter 6 at least. And so at that point, and so I kind of like, just based on the decision that you were having to make for the question, I was kind of like, okay, I feel like this is where it's going. For the most part, though, I will say, so I don't know if I necessarily like that. I would prefer it if the game holds your hand and says, hey, it's the end. Do you want to continue? Or if I would like to discover it. It honestly feels like a per game basis, I would say, for me.
So I guess I haven't really encountered what you're describing then, because
you don't finish games.
No, well, because I don't finish games, but also, what do you mean by the game tells you that it's about to end?
There have been in like Horizon Zero Dawn, or even it can be something very subtle. It's not like the game. Are you
talking about a screen pops up?
A screen or a dialogue option, usually. Like, I want to say in Horizon and Origins, Assassin's Creed Origins, it was a dialogue option, and it was basically like, you go to this, you'll be talking with one of the characters, and that you're interacting with the story, and it's usually like before a mission starts, and it'll be like, are you ready to go? And it'll sometimes be written into the dialogue, like, are you ready to go to sail onto this to this. It'll be a long, and they make it heavily implied in the dialogue that this will be the final mission. And then you
Ooh,
usually
I
have the
see.
dialogue options of, sure, let's go, or hold on, I'll be back. And I see that happen the most.
Well, I guess
often.
I have run into that more in games, but
It's not like it's so black and white. Like this is the end. This is the
Yeah.
end. But you definitely know if you play it, you're gonna be
Okay,
have the
I see.
mission. Usually, when I get to that, is when I have to do the hard decision making of, okay, do I want to keep playing right now, or do I want to stop? And it's usually more often than not that's when I stop because I'm like, I need to come back to this at a later date. And then it might be a little while. I try to make it as soon as I can because obviously, again, the climax of the story has been building up and I don't want that to be ruined. So I normally try to do it as soon as I can, but sometimes it can take a week or two before I can get back around to it. But I
it can
would
take me
rather,
years.
apparently,
4 years.
but I would rather have that than be in the middle of that last mission and something come up and I have to stop then. And then it's like really ruined. So I don't know, just a small aside that that kind of built off of this.
Indeed.
So this actually really well leads into the next part of this episode. Our next topic is that Ubisoft recently came out in an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, and this is actually by this point, like this article came out on September 10th. And it's from GamesIndustry.biz, why Ubisoft isn't abandoning its open worlds. CEO Yves Guillemot explains why the growing audience for games means the publisher's blockbuster model is sustainable. And this is by James Batchelor over on GamesIndustry.biz. And basically, it's been, it's been promoted that basically Ubisoft's coming out and saying, like, we're not going to be doing these shorter, more contained stories. We're moving away from that model. So
The
basically,
title of this article to me is really confusing.
it is
Because the content doesn't even imply that Ubisoft was ever going to be abandoning its open worlds.
Right.
That's really confusing
It kind
phrasing.
of is because the biggest examples that they're using in this article. So I'll read from the article here. Quote, 5 years ago, the publisher's main Q4 release was Assassin's Creed Unity, a title that, while open, is confined to one city, and if you focus purely on the main missions, can be polished off in around 15 hours. Meanwhile, last year's Assassin's Creed Odyssey takes place across the entirety of ancient Greece, plus all those nearby islands, and the average playtime for its users is 60 hours. This year, Ubisoft's tentpole title for Q4 is Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Following the success of Ghost Recon Wildlands, the series' first open-world entry, with two vast adventures to follow in early 2020 with Gods and Monsters and Watch Dogs Legion. Ubisoft is now synonymous with open worlds, yet is there a chance they would ever return to a more focused outing like Assassin's Creed Unity? To which CEO Yves Guillemot says no. Quote, our goal is to make sure you can have Unity within an Odyssey. If you want to have a story of 15 hours, you can have it, but you can also have other stories. You live in that world and you pursue what you want to pursue. You have an experience, many Unity-like experiences, end quote. So basically what they're saying is Ubisoft is going to be moving away from shorter, compact stories in these open settings, whereas it's now going to be huge, multi-hour, 60-plus hour outings into games like Assassin's Creed. And I love that Assassin's Creed works so well because it ties in. Assassin's Creed Origins is one that I didn't want to put down, and I spent 72 hours in that game, I want to say. And that's without touching the DLC. Like, I haven't been able to go back yet and touch the DLC, which looks really good, and I want to. And so off the bat, and it's an interesting thing. Like, what's your initial reaction to this?
So my whole reaction to this is that this is really confusing. So for starters, I want to preface this by saying, based on this article, none of this seems final to me. This all seems very speculative, even with Yves Guillemot saying our goal is to make sure that you can have a Unity within an Odyssey. Basically, by omission saying we're not going to make games like Unity anymore. That seems like a really weird statement to bother to put out there. Because to me, from a business perspective, why even make it so express? Why wouldn't you just quietly move away from that model if you say something like, oh, we're not going to be making Unities anymore? You're closing the door to yourself of being able to potentially in the future make these smaller games. And that's not to say that you can't make them. It's just going to mean that if you do ever make them in the future, it's going to be weird because people are going to be like, hey, didn't you say that you weren't going to make kind of the smaller, more contained games anymore? It just seems like a really weird decision to me to say, no, we're not going to do something, why wouldn't you just not do it?
Well, see, I'm assuming though that it means that it's pertaining. What I'm taking from this is that they're meaning specifically only these big open world games, a la Assassin's Creed, the new Ghost Recons and stuff like that. Where, like, because no, Ubisoft makes Just Dance games. Like, unless they're gonna release after Just Dance 2020, Just Dance dancing all over the world. Like that game model doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, so there is some disparity there. I don't think that means blanket applies to everything, but I feel like what they're saying, what Eves is saying is if it's a big open world game, don't expect the main story to be 15 hours or don't expect your experience, your minimum experience to be this 15-hour thing. It's going to be huge. It's going to be spread. There will be multiple 15-hour stories, you know, just using that as an example, within this one game. So that means like, I think that means that it could move away from like the yearly release schedule. Like, for example, we're not getting a new Assassin's Creed this year. So maybe it's saying that their open world games are going to move away from like annual releases and instead be like, you get Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey is going to get content updates through either more stories, more missions, more whatever for 5 years, let's say, before the next iteration comes out. That's kind of what I'm taking this to mean.
I mean, I get that, but would you have said that Assassin's Creed Unity, which is the example they give in the article, that doesn't sound like a truly, air quotes, open world game to me. If it only took place in one city, then is it really open world?
It's open in the sense of it's not like you literally only go along like certain corridors of the city, only the ones that the story is taking you on. Like, say, for example,
So that's not open world.
I don't know. My take on that, I would call that open world. If it's something just because there's different places you can go. True, it's one setting. I don't know. That's
hard.
If
it's one setting, that's kind of what I guess think of as being
that's
not open world.
Okay, I'll concede that. Like,
so
that's true.
That kind of brings up what I think is my point of this article is that what they're saying, what I'm interpreting this as is Assassin's Creed Unity does not sound like an open world game to me. It sounds like a single contained game that took place in one particular setting.
That has a ton of other side activities you can do in the same thing to make it more than the 15 hours.
But those side activities still took place in the same setting. It's not like they were in this big open world environment like what we would consider modern open world games to be currently. So what it sounds like to me they're saying is they're not going to make really what are small games, because if Unity was max 15 hours if you played the main story, that is technically a smaller game.
True.
So it sounds to me like what they're saying is we're not going to make smaller games anymore. We're only going to be investing in these big open world opportunities.
Which to me, I'm all about. Like, because going back to games we don't want to end, I don't want Assassin's Creed Origins to end. So you're telling me that you're going to support this game for years with new updates and new content and all this stuff for me to enjoy? Absolutely, I'm there. You know, and so I know then this then raises questions of like, well, what does that look like? How do they continue to make money off of this? Like, obviously, I would imagine then they're not going to be going with free content updates. It's going to be you buy the expansions, or you buy the further DLC that they have. But I don't think Ubisoft will necessarily go the way of loot boxes because they haven't really done that before. Like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins, you can buy cosmetic items, and there are even in some of their other games like Far Cry 5 and things like that you could buy these boosters that would basically give you experience points to help you move along in the story faster.
Pay to win.
For me, well, again, it's a single player story. There is some,
but you're still paying to skip content.
Yeah, I never bought them, so I don't know exactly how they work. Because for me, like, I know people I've seen online people saying, oh, they're just so grindy. But that's what I want in that kind of game. I don't want, for me personally, and I understand other people may be different, but that's what I want. I want a game like Assassin's Creed, especially when the industry is with games like Destiny or The Division and things like that, where these games are, yeah, you can play this and you can go back and grind, but like you get the most benefit from having a group and playing through with this group. I love the games like Assassin's Creed because they don't require that, but it is still this huge open world that I can go to explore and that I feel like has no end to an extent. And so I like having that as the ability. So I don't mind at all if it's grindy, because I like if I'm enjoying that world and I am and having a blast in it, sign me up. Like, yeah, I want to have as many experiences in that as I can.
I don't know. I just feel like overall it's a really strange thing to state as a matter of policy going forward. Because my big take on Ubisoft, one of my favorite games that they've ever made was Child of Light.
Right.
A smaller game experience that was a contained cell in and of itself. Once you finish the game, you finish the game.
Very true.
I really enjoy and get so much more out of games like that as opposed to the open world games. And I can even say that about Breath of the Wild, which is one of the biggest open world games I personally have ever played and finished. That being said, did I get more enjoyment out of Breath of the Wild than some of the other much smaller games I've played? Probably not. And did I think that those other smaller games were better quality and better experiences overall? In many cases, yes.
Right.
So it just seems really weird to me that they would be like, hey, heads up, we're not making any of those games anymore. Why wouldn't you just not say it? Is what I'm curious about.
But that's what I'm wondering though too, if they're needing to still come out with further clarification. Because like I said, to me, this means open world games, don't expect a short campaign anytime soon or a quick package. But because still, and that leads to other questions like, what does that mean for future games that they already have currently in development? Like, we already know Watch Dogs Legions is going to be a big open world game. There's going to be a lot to do there. But also at the same time, as far as I know, that only really takes place in London. But I guess that's what I mean. Like, that's what I didn't quite understand what you were getting at first. Because if, like, say Paris in Unity is massive and sprawling and has tons, like a huge map, I would still kind of consider that open world.
I mean, if it's big enough, sure. But Unity didn't sound that big.
Right. I mean, because it only takes place in the one city.
Yeah.
So, but also, but I'm looking at other games that they currently have in development, like, well, Skull and Bones, the pirate one, that's very much a multiplayer online game only. So, yeah, that makes sense and would fit in that model. But I'm also thinking of Beyond Good and Evil, too.
I don't know. I mean, I think in my book, open world means many environments, lots of roaming.
Okay.
I would not define London. I would not define Paris as open world. Even if you can go to different sections of those cities, you're still technically in one environment.
Right.
If you could go to London and then go to Paris and then go to Spain and then go somewhere else, that I would consider open world.
And travel it. Now, what about if it's like, say, the only way to get into those things was like a fast travel? You couldn't by land or by sea or by air travel to those new locations. Would you still consider that? Or would that be just different areas and
I don't know.
Or would those be just like smaller? This is getting into a whole different kind of thing.
It's
but still.
a different topic, but my point is I just don't understand why they would even bother to bring it up.
I think at this point too, it is a little, like we've said, yeah, it is. I think there's still more clarification we need. I just think it's maybe planting the seed to get people ready for it is kind of what I see it as. Because it is also, if you're looking at it, it's September now. E3 or whatever E3 will be by next year is coming up soon, and and everything relatively within the next few months. So maybe they're starting to kind of lay this out. Plus, these other bigger games are coming out. So these games that they've already announced. So maybe they're kind of like starting to lay the groundwork for whatever they will announce at E3 or the next big trade show, where that we kind of be like, hey, we're changing how we've done things, and I kind of feel like this maybe is the first introduction to that. But I'm with you, though. I still feel like we need a little bit more from Yves and the rest of Ubisoft about what that is actually going to look like. Because I don't see them being like, hey, we're only making open world, 100+ hour games from now on, and that's our MO. I think if they did decide to do that, they could do it well, because I think they already do it very well. But especially even as games like big open world games like Odyssey and Origins, even down to their games as a service like For Honor, The Division, and things like that. Like I think Ubisoft handles very well their game worlds and what they put out. I think they do a very good job of putting out post-launch content, especially I know Division 1 had issues, but from what I've read and even just with things that I've experienced in For Honor, and with Assassin's Creed, they put out good quality post-game content. So I feel like if they did switch to that and they literally did only make these big games, I think they would do very well at it. And because they're what they do have in the way of microtransactions, they don't cause a flurry and a kerfuffle every time you hear about them, because they are very well managed and and they don't impede or give advantages either way. They're, and how they handle them. So at the end of the day, I think if they did do that, I wouldn't necessarily be heartbroken, I would say, because again, a lot of these big open world games that I enjoy are made by Ubisoft. So I'm like, sure, again, but I just think we need more clarification of what that will look like as it comes out.
I mean, my whole thing on this is that I just don't think that it was necessary to even mention it at this point.
Save it for like E3.
Yeah, I just don't understand why they would even bother to imply it at this point, because it seems, again, so speculative right now that it's like, why are you telling us anything at all?
Well, and at this point,
why bother to make this statement?
Everything that we've read and what we're doing right now is speculation, because that's all we necessarily have at this moment. So it'll be very interesting, though, to see how this all pans out. Anyway, if you have thoughts on this, we'd love to hear about them from you. Send us an email at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com. Comment below on the video and the audio. Send us a message on social media. We would love to hear from you. Join our Discord and talk about it with us there. But before we go, we do have to do our soundtrack spotlight, which we're going to take music from one of the games we talked about, which I've selected as Middle of Earth, Shadow of Mordor.
Fascinating.
I actually don't know if we've ever used.
Wait, don't worry. I can do it now. How does the Lord of the Rings theme go? Oh, no, wait. Is that the Skyrim theme? Shit.
That's not Lord of the Rings.
I don't know what I'm singing. What's the Lord of the Rings soundtrack?
Dun,
I can't.
Dun, dun, dun,
yeah, you're.
dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, okay, I
yeah.
got it. I don't know what I was thinking
bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, there we go.
For the battle scenes.
It's been a while since I've had a...
It's actually been a while since I've watched them or played them,
Oh, it
too.
hasn't been a while since I've watched them. It's been a while since I had a proper marathon.
Ah, I see. I haven't either. I need to do that again. That's our extra life rule this marathon.
Yeah, we're just going to watch Lord of the Rings. It'll take up the full 24 hours.
Nice. So the track that we'll be featuring is The Grave Walker from Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, composed by Gary Scheinman and Nathan Grigg. So listen to that after the close of the episode. Again, the title is The Grave Walker from Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. But that concludes this episode of Team Chat Podcast. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Adios.
We'll see you all next week for another fun, exciting gaming topic. We'll see you then. Stick around for the song.